So I'll go first. I'm Hendree. I'm, of course, the rector, the priest at the Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd here, and I am in Lexington, and I'm really excited to see all of you folks who are in one way or another new to Good Shepherd Church and eager today to learn about spiritual maps. So that is me. Who wants to go next?
Hello, all. I'm Minda Adkins, and as you know, I was in my kitchen hanging my pots here in Lexington, Kentucky.
Great. Thank you, Minda.
Hey, everyone. I'm Eric, and I also live in Lexington, Kentucky.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
We are Matt and Brittany, and we are here in Nicholasville, Kentucky.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matt and Brittany.
Erin Young, sitting in sunny Lexington, Kentucky.
There you go.
Sure is. I'm Christina, and I'm in Lexington, Kentucky.
Great, Christina.
I'm Nicole. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky.
And I'm Lee. Lee in Lexington, Kentucky.
Great. Glad y'all are here.
I'm Carol, joining from West Virginia, though I wish I was still in Lexington.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, Carol, we're in West Virginia.
I'm in Charlestown.
Charlestown, beautiful Charlestown. I'm originally from West Virginia, so I moved from Charleston here. So,
Well, I'm out in Kearneysville, actually, but I'm here because of the horses. So
Yep, I figured. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to.
Great. That's great. Glad you're here, Carol.
I'm Woody Snowden. I'm here in Lexington, Kentucky.
I'm Helene McRoberts, and I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, in my house and Hamburg area. And that's it.
Great. I think that's everybody. Good deal. Well, again, just delighted to be with y'all. So you know what we're about is this Episcopal exploration class, and what it hopes to be over the course of 6 weeks, I think that's right, is just a sort of primer, not to be exhaustive, but just to get us started and understanding a little bit more about what it looks and feels like and actually is to be a follower of Jesus in the Episcopal tradition, so the denomination of the Episcopal Church. And we started last week with a look at our theme here at Good Shepherd, Love is All, and the scriptural basis for our theme. So we walk through that. This week, today, we're going to talk a little bit about spiritual maps. Next week, my friend Woody Snowden, who's on this call and just introduced himself, is going to do a short primer on church history. So if you're joining a new family, like if Good Shepherd is a family, then one of the things, if you join a new family, or maybe better put, new community, is to sort of understand on the family tree of Christianity, how did we come to be? How did the Episcopal branch come to be? What a part of the trunk did it grow off, et cetera, et cetera. I'll really, you'll notice about me, I'll kill a metaphor if you let me. I'll just keep driving at it. That'll be Woody with history. And then Woody will hand off to Father John, who will talk the next week a little bit about the prayer book. So the Episcopal Church has as central to our common life the book of common prayer. We use it every Sunday in worship here, and Father John will talk a little bit about that. Then at the Church of the Good Shepherd, we have a theologian in residence. Aren't we fancy? His name is Dr. Mark Medley, and he is going to talk a little bit about how we do theology in the Episcopal Church. And then Father John and I will come back together to wrap it up with a final session or two. All of this culminates in the bishop's visit on Pentecost Sunday, which is May 23rd, at which some of you may choose to be received or confirmed into the Episcopal Church. You don't have to. And I know that some of you are already received or confirmed in the Episcopal Church. And so this for you is just sort of learning what the local flavor is, sort of what are we in Lexington at Good Shepherd about, and how do we guide and ground and order ourselves. So that sound good? Any questions to this point about what we've done already or what we're going to be doing together? Good deal. All right. So today is my little primer that I'm still working out. I've taught it many times, but if you're a teacher, I don't have it quite where I want it, but every time I get it a little bit more where I want it. Today is a teaching on spiritual maps. And the reason I teach on spiritual maps and find them so helpful, and I'm going to screen share in a minute and walk you through some slides with this teaching. The reason I teach on spiritual maps is that I have a sense that we understand what I'm about to say is true, but we don't name it well enough, or as we should. And what I'll say is this: we're all over the map. Just because you join the, pun intended, just because you join a church doesn't mean, our church in particular, that everybody in the church community is lockstep, that we all see things the same way, that we all have the same particular beliefs, that we all vote the same way, that we all view issues in the same way. We most certainly do not. We are not a homogenous sort of one flavor type of crowd. One of the reasons for that is we're all in different places on the spiritual journey. And there are maps that have been given to us by saints and mystics and teachers and researchers and scientists that help us understand two things. One, what is a map for the individual on the spiritual journey? So what is just the map where Hendree can sort of understand where he is, where Eric can understand where he is, and Minda and Carol and Aaron and all the rest. So for a map for the individual. And two, what about a map for all of humanity? Like the different groups in humanity over the course of human history. Is there a map that shows us the evolution of spiritual consciousness? And there is. Key point, there's not one map, there are a multitude of maps. There are thousands of maps. What I do in this little teaching is work off a collation of the maps, of many different spiritual maps that have been distilled into a map that's called spiral dynamics. Again, it's not the map, it's a map. And what I want to do is start by sharing my screen. We'll dive in. So when you join a church, when you join a spiritual community, you might rightly, and I hope you do, have the question, where in the world am I on the journey, and where am I or are we headed? My sense is that most people, or a lot of people, join a church because they're curious. They know that there's a depth dimension to life. They know that there's more than just the surface level work-a-day, humdrum comings and goings. There's more to it. There's a spiritual nature to life. And so is there some kind of map for that nature or that journey? There is. And again, sort of repeating the way what I started with, there's two big categories that we're looking at mapping. One is the individual and one is the collective. So there's me and then there's all of us. So I'm at a particular place on the journey, as is the group or groups that I live with. I always like to use this one-liner from Thomas Aquinas because it helps sort of articulate what happens, or what's happening rather, when I find myself as a part of a community where people disagree and see things differently. And Aquinas said this: whatever is received according to the mode of the receiver. Put another way, you don't see things as they are, like as the thing is, so much as you see things as you are. So my reality is greatly colored, tempered by the lens through which I see my reality. That's not the one I want, this one. When we start off in life and on the spiritual journey, both as the individuals and the collective of humanity, we start off and it is all about me. So the first stage on the spiritual journey is egocentric. And if you think about yourselves as infants and very young children, all you care about is where you're going to eat, how you're going to feel safe, and where you're going to sleep. That is it. The entire universe revolves around you. You think that you and your mother, or that it's stereotypically a mother, it's generally a mother, you are that caregiver. Mother we'll use as a symbol word perhaps for some. are all that matter. And the great journey in your life is from your own sort of field of view to the mother's breast, right? Literally and figuratively. Where do I get my sustenance? Egocentric, egocentric, egocentric. As we grow, we realize that it's not all about us. Grow up in a good family and you'll be told that. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. I'm very much in the stage of parenting of telling them that it is not all about you. It is about us. It's not just the Mary show. There is a greater tribe called the Harrisons, and you're a member. As we grow, we become ethnocentric, right? So when Jesus first calls a follower, he says, you come follow me. I am the bread of life. I will give you the bread. Egocentric, 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 a very appropriate and actually the only way to start. If you follow Jesus through the gospel for very long, well, you've all done it, right? Because you're here. This you being present in this little conversation is an illustration of the birth of ethnocentricity in your lives. Jesus says, you come follow me. I will give you sustenance. And then what? I'll teach you to fish for people. I'm going to introduce you to a greater crowd of God's children. So we grow very naturally along the spiritual map or spiritual journey from egocentric to ethnocentric. And for a stretch of time, both as individuals and the collective, we're all about our tribe, whether it's our family. I'm a Harrison, my last name is Harrison, so the Harrisons, or the greater region, the Lexingtonians. Oh, the Lexingtonians have been so good to welcome a West Virginia resident in today, right? So we're ethnocentric, but yeah, exactly. And we found out that we have someone who's from West Virginia. So we're ethnocentric, right, in a little coupled sort of ethnocentric way. We're not so sure yet if we're going to have anybody from Ohio in our little crowd, because we're tribal still. Now, I'm being playful to make the point. As you get as we grow into ethnocentricity, we realize that we're a part of a group of people. It's not all about me. And then we continue to grow and we emerge into world-centric. We realize that my tribe is not the only tribe. And in fact, it's kind of cool. It's just kind of fun the way conversationally, really, it went from Carol saying West Virginia to Christina. I think I'm getting your name right, Christina. Yeah. To sort of, oh, there's another tribe over here and I'm from it, West Virginia. As we grow and go in the Christian tradition, we realize that the Episcopal Church is a little ethnocentric tribe, but we're one denomination, which is just a synonym for tribe, within this world-centric religion or this larger landscape where under the banner of Christianity, there's all manner of different denominations or tribes, Episcopal, Roman Catholic, Methodist, Lutheran, on and on and on. So this is just the high level, the view from 30,000 feet, the spiritual map, the map of the evolution of the spiritual journey goes through for all people. You don't skip a stage, goes through these three stages. First, there's me and mom, me and Jesus. Then there's my people, my tribe, Good Shepherd Church, 533 East Main Street in Lexington, Kentucky. And then there's this beautiful awareness that we're one tribe in a fellowship of many tribes, egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric. That's happened on the individual level. It's also happened in the great span of the evolution of humanity for the past, let's just use a round number, 500,000 years, right? So started really at 14.8 billion years ago at the Big Bang, but human beings didn't come along, of course, until much, much later. And then consciousness evolved a little later. So let's just say several 100,000 years ago, human beings were not banded together in tribes. They were individuals just fighting to survive every day. And then the evolution of humanity over the course of the past several 100,000 years has brought us through this tribal centrism into a world centrism, where now today, if you want to know something about what's happening in Brazil or Mozambique or New Zealand, what do? In a world-centric world, you grab this little thing you can put in your pocket that contains all the information that ever was, literally, which, by the way, is just a showstopper. And you need no more proof to know that we live in a world-centric consciousness. I mean, we know that we're connected to everybody and everything that ever was. Questions to this point. This is the view from 30,000 feet, probably something you largely already knew, even if you didn't know it and I just gave you different words for it. You sort of knew that that's the deal. You knew that when you were little bitty, you were totally focused on yourself. Not bad, it is what it is. You knew that by the time you got to be a teenager, college age and beyond, you were a part of a bigger tribe. First your family, then your band of friends, then your first church, your first civic organization. And you know probably now, if you've made it to this call in this class in this situation, that clearly we are a people who are conscious of a global sense of connection. We together so far? All right. Now we're going to drill deeper into the template, the map that is called spiral dynamics. And keep in mind, spiral dynamics is a map, not the map. And it's the result of the collation of thousands and thousands of researchers looking at the evolution of humans as a whole and individual human beings. The stages I'm about to present to you, we all go through individually, no exceptions, and the whole of humanity from the dawn of humanity has gone through and will continue to go through together. All right. It's a colorful, fun chart that I have. All right. That's not what I want to do. Okay. Spiral dynamics is a tool. And the reason I like to teach it in the church and spiritual context is, again, because it describes you and it describes us. And when you show up in any community, and in my world is the church, when you show up in any community, in a church community in particular, you're going to find people in different places. You're going to find Democrats and Republicans, pro-life and pro-choice, any other hot button issue or cold button issue you want to dream up. You're going to find them in a community that is diverse like ours. And it can be confusing. And a spiritual map, spiral dynamics in particular, helps tease apart the confusion and give us some clarity. Okay, so we're going to go back 100,000 years. And the way we delineate the different stages of the evolution of human consciousness with this map is by colors. It's almost an arbitrary designation, choice to use colors. The reason the folks who designed this and discovered it use colors is because they were dealing with civil rights and they wanted to do something that was not going to be stigmatizing to anybody. And they figured beige, purple, red, blue, orange was going to be not controversial, not stigmatizing to anybody. If I say Woody is purple, Woody's not going to get his feelings hurt. He probably didn't even know what that means, So it's sort of meant to be rather neutral, just to have colors. Okay. You find different teachers, they'll use different colors, different terms, but this is what I've taught and what I teach. So 100,000 years ago, the human consciousness stage of beige or survivalist comes online. And this is sort of stereotypically, we'd say just the earliest humans, like caveman, cave woman, to use a sort of caricature, right? It's just the earliest human beings. And their whole orientation in life is survival and security. How am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? How am I going to stay safe? How am I going to reproduce, right? Very egocentric, very individual, survival and security. This is the baby from 0 to 18 months old, let's say. That's all that matters. That was the first stage of human consciousness that came online, and depending on the researcher, it came online between 100 and 250,000 years ago. Human beings lived like that for a long time. According to this particular handout I have, 50,000 years. Each stage comes online according to the problems of the present context. The problem that caused the purple or the next stage to come online was you can't go it alone safely anymore. So 50,000 years ago, the purple or deeply tribal, oftentimes magical stage of human consciousness came online. This could be anywhere from 1 to 8 years old in the child. As soon as a toddler begins to be able to toddle about and discover the world, 6 feet away from mom and beyond, he or she discovers friends, siblings if they have them, the family dog, and discovers that it's not actually best for me to be all about me, but actually best for me to band together with others. So I have a little brother who's 18 months younger than I am. You better believe when purple stage consciousness came on and the two of us, boy, we banded together. I could steal cookies on my own and kind of figured that out, but join up with Todd, buddy, we could steal cookies and store them under our bunk beds. You know what I mean? I'm being playful to make the point. That's on the individual level. In the collective level, what happened 50,000 years ago and in the human community all over planet Earth is that we discovered, because of the problem of being on your own in beige stage, that together we could survive and grow stronger. One of the things that's characteristic of the purple stage of consciousness, and you'll be able to identify with this as I describe it in small children, is magical thinking. The life condition that we're responding to by clanning together is that the world is a scary place. And the fear that permeates the world is mysterious. So we suppose that there's unseen gods. Anybody ever study Greek mythology? Unseen gods that are governing everything. And so we develop a system for pleasing the gods, right? When you're a little kid, you believe that whether you're naughty or nice, Santa Claus is watching, right? And making a list. You believe, if it's been your tradition and your little tribe, your family, that there's such a thing as an Easter bunny and a tooth fairy. They're unseen magical creatures that will act benevolently towards you if you perform in a certain way, or as magical as losing a tooth, right? You lose a tooth and the tooth fairy comes. It's magical thinking. Unseen gods govern a scary world. In human history, let's say 50,000 years ago, when purple stage started to come online, let's say you lived in a little tribe, a little village, and one of the ways that you all survived is you had a little herd of animals, maybe they're cows. And one night one stretch of nights, there's a full moon. And on the full moon, one night you forget and you leave your cow out in the pasture and she shows up dead the next morning. Well, it was because of some disease she had, but you didn't know that. This is pre-scientific, right? 50,000 years ago. You did quick math on it with your magical thinking, and you determined that when a full moon is out, if you leave your cow outside of shelter, she'll die. So you develop a whole ritual around bringing the cows in when there's a full moon. I just made that up out of whole cloth just to illustrate magical thinking, right? Whether you're naughty or nice, Santa Claus is watching and you get cold or gifts, magical thinking. Now, it's not bad. It's actually perfectly appropriate. When I had a 6 and a 7 and an 8-year-old who believed in Santa Claus, if you'd have told my daughter that there was no Santa Claus, I would have been irate with you. I would have been totally upset with you because it's a perfectly appropriate stage of development. We all go through it. Magical, enchanted thinking. Okay, tribal organization. So what tribal organization in purple stage does is solve the problem of individualism in beige stage, right? The world is too dangerous. We need to band together. So purple comes online. As I said, every stage comes online because the current context, there's a problem embedded in the current context. So the problem that develops in purple stage is that the tribal culture mutes the individual, which along the way is not good. There's a certain point at which I want my girls to strike out on their own. I want them to kind of graduate from the Harrison way and discover their own way, discover their own gifts and talents, because right now they're doing it the way their mom, my wife and I want them to do it, but I want them to grow and keep going. So red stage comes on because as we grow, we discover that there's some gifts to the impulsive, egocentric self that is still buried inside the human being. This comes online about 10,000 years ago. And in the human child, it can come on anywhere from 5 to 10. In red stage, we discover that if we band together and exercise our own individual power, we often say might makes right in red stage, we can compete with the other tribes and get more resources for ourselves. So this is not altogether positive, but it's a part of life. You remember that band of girls or band of guys that you ran with in school? And that was your thick little mafia, right? Your little gang. I'm not meaning to be derogatory. I'm just trying to use descriptive sort of images that you can identify with. Well, those are your people. And you know, when you were running around with them, you were going to be okay. The downside of that is that it can get too mean, right? So in the cultural sense, examples of red stage organizations are mafias, street gangs, tribal militias. They're good if you're being attacked and picked on, but they're not good to keep on going with. It's too much. An example of a red stage organization, it's funny to say organization with this example, would be ISIS, would be Al Qaeda, who do awful evil things. So I don't have anything good to say about ISIS or Al Qaeda, but they're examples of groups of people who feel utterly oppressed and pressed upon and marginalized, banding together, choosing to exercise their might, their egocentric power together for violence to get what they want.
Would you also say sororities or fraternities?
At their worst, I mean, at their best, they can, yes, sororities and fraternities can exhibit the shadow side of red stage. They more come on in blue stage, but yes, they could. As I say, red stage comes on about 10,000 years ago, and it solves the problem of the tribe co-opting my identity. It also comes online when we discover that, as this says here, the world is actually something I don't have to be totally afraid of if I exercise with my fellows my own power. The world rather is a jungle full of threats and predators that I can conquer by violence and strength. And red stage also comes on to say that you're not going to dominate me. Now,
Henry, or Father.
yeah, Christina, go ahead.
So, and I'm glad you said the word power, because it seems like that's when folks become self-aware and they start seeking power.
Right.
And it's either to dominate,
right,
and or folks who feel like they are powerless. That's why they seek those in power, because it makes them feel like they have more power,
That's
even
right.
though they are powerless.
That's right.
Would that be a fair
Yep.
statement?
Very good. And let's launch from that, Christina, into blue and to the problem that's caused in red that causes blue to come online. Okay. So it's funny. It's not funny, but it's so cool when you see it. Lots of folks, myself included, look at American culture right now, like literally right this second, and say, what is the deal? And why are folks who are marginalized joining up with people who are so crass and vulgar and wield in word and deed all of these things that do not seem to be congruent with contemporary values? Well, Christina, you just really said it. In our culture, in this country and all over the world, folks who are marginalized and oppressed and are not able to get sort of a leg up, as it were, are resorting to aligning themselves with people and leaders who are stuck in red stage or who are choosing red stage as their modus operandi. Put another way, when I'm getting picked on, it's good to make friends with a bully. Now that is actually not congruent with my values. Makes sense? But I'm getting picked on. So I feel like I don't have any other choice. So I might anecdotally go find the most red person I can and elect them to be the leader of my life. Personally, corporately, individually, communally, whatever. The trouble with red stage is it's just too violent. It's just too chaotic. What we actually realize is the violence and the chaos is not worth it. So 5,000 years ago, the problem of the overwhelm of violence and chaos yields to blue stage, or what we call traditional stage consciousness, coming online. This is when the Judeo-Christian tradition was born. This is when the Bible, the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, all started to come online. The Hebrew people who became the Jews, it all comes online when blue stage comes online. What blue stage values is law and order, not the many gods, not whoever is strongest and meanest and cusses you the darkest winds, right? But one God who is after the peace for the whole community. This is where the language around kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God comes in. Garden of Eden. Can you kind of visualize in your mind how if we are a people who've lived under the chaos and violence of red stage, where might makes right, and I got to band together with my little group of people so we can conquer you so you don't conquer us, right? Can you imagine how an image like the delightful poetry of the Garden of Eden would appeal? Does that kind of make sense? As you're emerging from a realization that violence and chaos are not going to be a sustainable plan for humanity for the future, then your intuition is this beautiful creation story where God, the one God, Yahweh, Jehovah, as we call God in the Old Testament, creates everything. So it's all one family, not many tribes, but one family. He looks on it all, you remember last week, and says it's good. And then he sets up this idyllic garden where the archetypes of all of us, Adam and Eve, can live together in order. And then as you go on in the Old Testament story and blue stage consciousness comes even more online, we're given the 10 Commandments. So you go from the violence and chaos of the strongest person and people wins to here's the rules. Does that make sense? So the problem is you can't live in violence and chaos. The answer comes online in blue. Here's the rules. Here's law. Here's order. And the particular genius, not better, but just the particular genius of the Jewish and Christian traditions is that the rules are all for love. They're not for control. They're for love. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about, and this is what Woody will point to in his own way next week, when Christians changed from the rules being about love to being about power and control, we lived in the shadow side of blue, okay? All right. So blue comes online. I've kind of laid out how blue comes online in the corporate sense 5,000 years ago for the human community. It comes online for human being, the individual human being rather, for me and for you, in early adolescence. So preteen and early teens, where maybe you join the Girl Scouts, maybe you join the Boy Scouts, maybe you join a soccer team, some kind of athletic endeavor. Maybe you join up with the acolytes as a child at a church. And what you're given there is the gift of order. Even the most strident sort of star of the team has to listen to the coach. If you don't listen to the coach, there's consequences, right? Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are great at this. In the Episcopal tradition, acolytes, I think, is good because it just teaches you how to live according to order. You dress in this way, you light the candles like this, you hold the books like this. And what that does is introduce a trajectory to your life. So it's not so chaotic, right? It gives you a little sense of, oh, that's what we're aiming for. There's a goal here and order enables growth. Order also deals with the problem of impulsivity. How often do we talk about with our school-age children that they have trouble controlling themselves? Impulse control, impulse control. Blue Stage helps with that. So it's marvelous. So quintessential organizations in Blue Stage are the Roman Catholic Church, the military, most government agencies, the public school system, something like the Episcopal Church, where we have bishops and priests and deacons and wardens. You know, we have an order and a hierarchy that all came out of Blue Stage. When I'm thinking about history, I often think about the British monarchy. There's a real order there, which was a problem solver to the chaos of what I perceive to be the chaos of feudal lords, right? It's kind of like Game of Thrones is red and it yields to the British monarchy, where we had the burial of Prince Philip, and everybody on the whole planet knows the order of the procession, right? And we know that the brothers, you know, were in certain places, and that the print, does that make sense? That's a quintessential illustration of Blue Stage consciousness. All right. So Blue Stage is very ethnocentric again. Comes online 5,000 years ago. The problem with Blue Stage is that it's kind of like the problem of Purple Stage. You have to sacrifice so much of yourself to fall into the order that is pressed upon us. And what happens when we totally sacrifice self is, it's kind of like I was talking about my little girls. We don't lean into our better angels. We don't lean into our particular gifts. If I'm really gifted in math and science, but my people have always been English teachers or lawyers or think of anything else that's not math and science, and I just have to Blue Stage stay in what my people do, but my real gift that God gave me of math and science, well, that's a diminishment of self that we wouldn't want for anybody, right? Well, as an entire human community, we realized that there were some gifts to a strategic use of our egocentrism, as it's just buried in us by God. So Orange Stage comes around really quite recently, about 300 years ago. When you get college age, or one of my daughters is actually late high school age, so she's beginning to discover her own gifts. In a couple of years, we'll be talking about what she might want to major in college. Well, along with, I guess, right, Woody, talking about where she wants to go to college, because that'll be relevant. It'll be very Orange Stage. It won't be about the Harrisons always go to Sewanee. Heck, I don't know, maybe she'll want to go to Penn or UK or California. I have no idea where she'll want to go. We'll need to let her have some independence in that. That'll be Orange Stage. The best cultural example of Orange Stage consciousness coming online is these United States of America. What we often call, when we're being humble, which we should be, the American experiment, is kind of like a flagship of Orange Stage consciousness coming online in the entire human community. Woody can teach this better than I can, but I'll just have a little quick go at it. And you all know this. Our people, many of whom were in England, living under the British or English monarchy, the king, as it were, felt one, like exploring the world. That's very Orange Stage. You don't have to stay at home. Go explore the world, right? And two, they felt pressed upon by the order of it. I'm never going to break through from my position in the caste. Is that the right use of that word, really? In the class system, or the caste, C-A-S-T-E, I think, system. But if I sail across the sea and we discover a new way to do society, a new way to do government that is, now I'll use our language, democracy, not monarchy, what could be? And so Thomas Jefferson and friends are literally an example of some of the first cohort of human beings where Orange Stage consciousness is coming online. The age of the Enlightenment, all of the scientific enlightened thinking that came online 300 to 500 years ago, that is all orange stage. The very idea that the world is not flat, but that it's round, that the world, the planet Earth is not the center of the universe. It's a part of billions of galaxies and one of maybe billions of universes. I mean, all of that is us stretching our wings individually and corporately to discover the world beyond the horizon of our imaginations. Does that kind of make sense? And when you send your little one off to college or whatever's next, not everybody goes to college, but everybody ought to fly the coop, right? That's what you want for them. The reason it was just such an evolutionary potent time that this land was discovered by Europeans. It wasn't discovered, there were already people here, but it was discovered by Europeans because they felt the boldness of this orange stage of consciousness coming online some 300 odd years ago. Very much the modern orange stage is also called modern stage. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? That's where this comes from, orange stage. You can do this on your own, chart a course. Lewis and Clark is orange stage at its most adventurous. The kind of current examples of orange stage organizations are businesses that are pushing the envelope in sort of any sort of way. The iPhone comes around because orange stage at its height believes that that it can do it. We landed on the moon because orange stage at its height believe, frankly, simply that we could do it. In orange stage, our goal is to compete and beat our competitors. We're not like red stage. We don't want to kill them, right? But we do want to compete and beat them. The ratings and television networks, and now it's streaming services, I guess, whatever. I mean, that's all orange stage, competition, modern business sensibility. In orange stage, we believe that everybody should have the opportunity to do business and succeed, and the best will survive. And my goal, my motivation is to beat you. The problem with that orange stage presents or creates is that it leaves a lot of people behind, right? So Thomas Jefferson and friends were really onto something when they created American democracy and they wrote the Constitution. And they were partly correct when they said all men are created equal, but they were not totally correct. Why? Because they really meant men, and they really meant white men. They were wrong on that. And that doesn't make them bad people per se, so much as it's an illustration of the evolution of development in general, and theirs in particular. So the problem, again, with orange is it leaves people behind. It left women behind in that case. It left people of color, particularly Black people, African-American people behind. So what's called for, do I have green stage up now? Yeah, okay. So the problem of people getting left behind precipitates green stage consciousness, or progressive, sometimes called progressive stage consciousness, coming online. This is brand new. Came online about 150 to 200 years ago. And it really was potent when within 100-year period of time, every nation state on planet Earth abolished slavery. And if you want to feel humble today as an American, you can feel humble because we were the last. I'm not laughing at us, I'm laughing with us. We need to be humble. Other nation states around the world were ahead of us. And I don't know that we were exactly the last, but we were in the last wave of folks to realize that the shadow side of his orange stage is that it did not provide for equal, much less human rights, or human, much less equal rights for folks. So orange stage reaches its sort of genesis with things like the Civil War, which was fought over slavery, and then really reaches a pinnacle point in the 1960s. And our culture and in particular in the South African culture around that time with civil rights, the end of apartheid. This probably starts on the heels of World War II, where blue stage had to fight red stage, Nazi Germany. Does that kind of make sense? Does that put those things together for you? Green stage continues in earnest today, fighting for the cause of the rights of all human beings. Green stage wants everything to be fair for everybody. Things like universal health care, gender and marriage equality, these things come out of green stage consciousness. One of the shadow sides of modern or orange stage consciousness is that it does really well in progress and in business and in travel and all kind of different things. But the shadow side is it's destroying the planet. It was the orange stage that discovered fossil fuels and how magical they can be for our lives. And it was the green stage that says, well, that's great. And it got us to where we are, but it also had a great cost. And it's climate change, global warming. Everything that I've described so far are first tier levels of consciousness, or stages of consciousness. Stages or levels would be synonyms. They're first tier. Each of them has their dignity, and each of them has its disaster. So it has its, or put another way, it has its gift side and its shadow side. Each stage is coming online because of the problems of the life conditions of the present moment. There's a couple of principles, or a few principles that we talk about now at this point in this sort of teaching on this spiritual map. And this is where it sort of hopefully really rubber starts to meet the road. The goal of the spiral is not to have people come to where I am on the spiral. So if I think I'm in the green stage and I think that Woody's in the red stage, my goal is not to sort of spend all my time and energy bringing Woody from red to blue to orange to green, to where finally he can be on the mountaintop of Hendree, Harrison, where I live and everything is great. That is not the goal. The goal of the spiral is that everybody be healthy and accepted right where they are. I didn't say we accept bad behavior, but people have a right to be where they are. We want them to be healthy expressions of humanity where they are, because we operate under the principle and the premise that healthy people grow. So if Woody's at red, and he's not, if Woody's at red, my goal is just how can I live in relationship with him so he's a healthy expression of red? Which like an example of that might be that he sticks up for people who are being bullied with his strident sort of independence. And that would be good. Yeah, Christina.
So this is extremely helpful. I love that it's called a spiral, because for me, so I'm a situational leader. Okay.
Oh, good.
All right. And so what I'm seeing here is your spiral could be depending on your situation.
Absolutely.
And where you are, so it's not like you're this bad person. You may be in a situation where the spiral currently is red.
Yep.
And of course there's variations of that.
Yep.
And so on this particular journey, I hope you don't mind me.
No, please. You're really doing it nicely.
So when I think of religion, I've always known I was a spiritual person.
Yep.
From the time I could be aware.
Yep.
And then I've been through different flavors of religion in my search for what is working, or my spiral. And it's so odd, because as you've been talking, I've been thinking about the stages of my life with respect to religion and why I chose a certain religion at a certain time.
Yeah.
And why I'm exploring this now is
Very
because your awareness increases over time.
That's right.
I'm at the core, I'm kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But as you live, you realize that there's not a single note. There's all these different kinds of notes.
Right.
And so And I love the fact that through all of these different phases, there are balconies and basements
Good, good.
of each, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
all different
everything in
floors in
between.
between.
Yep.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So,
The journey from the basement to the balcony, or the dignity to the disaster, or the gift to the shadow.
Right.
And one of the things, Christina, that we're taught is that the spiral is, I'm glad you picked up on and appreciate that it's a spiral, is far more like ocean currents, which you can't
Right.
really look at and tell the difference from, than it is like architecture. It's not like floors in a house where it's like, oh yeah, first floor, second floor, and there's no way to mistake one for the other, right? It's not that. It's ocean currents is the image, which sort of, I couldn't tell you ocean currents to look at them, right? They sort of flow together. Another principle of the spiral that sort of further articulates what you're saying so well is that as I pass through the stages, I have all of the earlier stages in me. I have all the gifts, and frankly, on my bad days, all the disasters of the earlier stages in me. So I'm not a red stage human being at 46 years old, but I sure can bully you on my bad days. Now, I try not to, and I hope not to, and yada, 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 but I sure can. Likewise, so that'd be the disaster. Likewise, I'm married and I have 2 children. If someone breaks into my house tonight, it is not going to be the green stage in me that I reach for. It's going to be the red stage, you better believe, right? And I'm going to defend my house with every ounce of strength that I have. And I'm not trying to be flippant or weird. I'm just, you would do the same. If your house catches on fire, you don't have sympathy for the fire. You reach on red stage and you do what you need to do to conquer the situation with your, the strength that you have. So
well, and you remember the beige stage when your survival is number 1.
Good. Excellent.
By any cost.
By any cost. That's right. That's right. So when we put people in jail today in 2021 for stealing food, we might well ask, what was that food for? And we might well get the answer, right, Christina? Well, my family is mired in poverty, and I don't know how in the hell I'm going to feed my babies. And so, yes, I did break into that store and steal that, as an example. Okay. Another principle is this is a tricky one. Oh, it's so humbling. The stage in each individual and in the collective, there's the mindset and firm belief that my stage is the stage. It's the last, I can see you smiling. It's the last stage of enlightenment, right? I'm saying that because you really believe that in the first tier, from beige to green, you believe that the stage you're at is it. And there's nothing beyond it. Here's where it gets worse. We almost always revolt vehemently against the stage we just left. So parents can stop wondering why their teenagers hate them. All they've done, it's just a season. They've just graduated from blue stage to orange stage, and orange stage always thinks that blue stage is the dumbest thing that has ever happened to the universe. All right. It gets a little bit worse before it gets better. Another principle about the spiral, and this is where I'm going to tell you what the culture wars are, according to the spiral. I'm going to talk about Democrats and Republicans. So if you're going to get offended, go ahead and I don't know what you should do. You're just hang in there. Another truth about the spiral is the green stage wants to extinguish the blue stage, wipe them out. They didn't exist. They've never existed. They were always wrong. Now, there's 2 problems with that. The big one is you don't get to green stage without going through blue stage. Nobody gets to skip a stage. Oh, but I did. No, you didn't. No one skips from 13 to 33, right? It's not possible. You've gone through all the stages. So it's kind of, I'll use a word, boneheaded for green stage folks to act like blue stage is not a thing. It's definitely a thing. You can't get, it's kind of like St. Francis said, it's like sometimes on the spiritual journey, we climb the spiritual ladder, we get to the top, the pinnacle point of enlightenment, and then we kick the ladder down and we just act like we're just born up there. We were born enlightened. No, stop it. Humility is understanding that we all climb the ladder to get to where we are, just to use that image. So green wants to extinguish blue, and blue, unfortunately, thinks that green is all, everybody who's in green stage consciousness is just high on peyote or something, or is out, out at Burning Man, just sort of willy-nilly into the night. This is the culture wars. And if we're going to stereotype, blue stage or traditional stage is your conservative type folks, and green stage or progressive stage is your liberal type folks. And they just war with each other. Between the two, and they all bleed together, right? Between the two, and having some members in both camps, is orange stage. And the three, blue, orange, and green, just go back and forth over the issues. And they're all after power and control. The problem is they are all trying to drag each other. They don't know this, but they're all trying to drag each other into their state, their respective stages of consciousness, and it's never going to happen. You have to grow into a stage of consciousness. The culture wars are absolutely tearing us apart right now in the country, in the Christian church, in all world religions. It's why institutions all over planet Earth are crumbling. Really, this is the axial moment in human history of the crumbling of institutions. This is a real benefit of this spiritual map. When we come into a community like ours, being able to understand that different people are in different places, not because they're wrong, not because they haven't had Hendree or Christina or Nicole or Eric tell them the way to be yet. It's because we're in different stages of consciousness. And there's something beautiful about each stage. Here's something that's really eye-opening. In the United States of America, oh, let me think about this before I say it to make sure I get it right. 30% of the population is at blue stage. Traditional stage. 50% of the population is in orange stage, which has still got a lot of traditional values, but also if it's good for business, we'll lean into green values. This is what's happening in my home state of Georgia right now. It's orange stage folks doing business, realizing y'all cannot dismantle rights for people. It's bad for business. You see, the motivation is not for the rights of the people so much as it is for business. Okay, 50% of the population is in orange stage. 20% is in green stage. Isn't that fascinating? So the 20% in green stage who want all of their grandparents and parents and whatever to see marriage equality the way they see it, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen on, today, because this blue stage group has got to journey and grow through orange stage and into green stage. It's got to be more organic. It cannot be forced. Okay, shadow side of blue stage is that there's not just one way. Stop it, church. Stop telling me that if I don't believe in this way, I'm going to hell. Stop it. That's the shadow side. There's not just one way. There are many ways, and there's lots of different things to explore that are really beautiful and efficacious for the sake of love. Shadow side of orange stage is it's destructive. You cannot do business like this because in all regards, forever and ever, amen, because it destroys the planet and it destroys lives. For the sake of business, we took away pensions. Well, that was not a good play, because there wasn't an answer to that, right? All we've got is the increased gap between the haves and the have-nots. You want to know what the shadow side of green is? The shadow side of green is twofold. One, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. That's what orange has been trying to tell green. It's too expensive to provide everything for everybody. We just haven't cracked that nut yet. I'm not saying we won't, but we haven't yet. The other shadow side of green is that it's tolerant only of the people that it's tolerant of, and then it's totally intolerant. So what comes online in green stage consciousness is the tolerance for everybody, equal rights for everybody. But what green is not telling you is that they're not at all tolerant of blue, much less red, right? So this intolerance buried in, the wolf of intolerance buried in the sheep of tolerance clothing. So when you come to the Christian church, when you come to the Episcopal denomination, when you come to Good Shepherd Church, and this is what I love, we've got people in blue stage, orange stage, and green stage. And sometimes the people get confused about why the people sitting next to them in the pew do not vote the way they do not feel the way they do about the issues. And the map just shows us we're in different places. And the trick is, with my grandparents, just as an example, fiction, who drive me crazy with their views on sexuality. If I'll just stay with them, let them be where they are, and love them as they are, they'll grow, right? And for Christians, I don't love them so they'll grow to be like me. I love them because God loves them right where they are. Caveat, we don't put up with abuse. We do believe in fighting for justice and human rights and peace among all people. We do believe in the dignity of every human being, as the baptismal promise says. But we hold in tension the fact that people have a right to be where they are. So when I came to Good Shepherd Church 2.5 years ago, a member of the parish who'd been away over an issue came to me, said, "Hendree, you're the new rector. I left because of this particular stance that I perceived Good Shepherd had on this particular issue. I've been away. I've realized this is my home. These are my people. I want to come back, but I want to know, with you here, do we have to agree on everything?" And I laughed and I said, "No, please don't. Absolutely not. We don't have to agree on everything, because people have a right to be where they are. And frankly, I think it's kind of boring when we all agree on everything. So please come back and please know that, no, we do not have to agree on everything." I'll wind down on this. The next stage past green stage. Have I got,
Henry, you haven't talked about the turquoise stage.
yeah, I just lost myself. Okay. Have I got yellow stage up? Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened, this is first tier. Everything I've described is first tier. What happens is what we call a great leap forward. And yellow tier comes online, and it's brand new, 50 years old at best. What happens, there comes a certain point, and Christina, you sort of really exhibited this in your first share, where something clicks on in us and we realize that all of the stages that have come before us are worth something. That each stage of our lives has given us a gift, and that gift has delivered us to the present moment. And we no longer have to hate every stage that came before us. At yellow stage, or integral consciousness, the first stage of second tier, we have this dawning appreciation for all of the people in all of their stages. I'm no longer a yellow dog Democrat or a compassionate conservative come hell or high water. I now understand that the Republicans have their place. I'm just using they're examples, right? Because we all know them. The Republicans have their place. The Democrats have their place. The independents have their place. We can even track ourselves through party allegiance if you've been sort of around the block with voting. You know, I've voted since I was 18 years old. I'm 46. I've voted for everybody. One of the things I've discovered is none of them give me what I want, which is a felt sense of God's presence as a life force in my body, right? I go in the booth and I vote just like everybody else does, but I know that it's not going to do the trick. But I'm glad they're all there, because this whole enterprise of being community is about a conversation that's organic and that just goes on forever and ever. At integral stage, we have an appreciation for this. So the church of the present and the future is an integral church where we acknowledge and appreciate and even celebrate that everybody out there in our pews, right, literally and figuratively, is in a different place. And our goal for all of you is that you be healthy where you are. By the way, there's probably not anybody at Good Shepherd Church who's got red stage operating in them. But if you are, you're not allowed to be violent here. And we're gonna try to coax you out of that violence, right? You know, if you do have blue stage operating in you and you're at Good Shepherd Church, we're not asking you to agree with gay marriage, but we are telling you that gay marriage has happened at Good Shepherd Church and that we're not going to allow discrimination of people based upon their sexual orientation. Does that sort of make sense? So, but I'm not going to spend any energy trying to talk you out of anything. What happens is organically, if we're allowed to be healthy where we are, we will grow. I was raised in a traditional sort of way in which the culture around me in the deep South said that homosexuality was inherently a sin. Well, you know what happened to me? I was allowed to grow and be healthy as a growing young adult. And then you know what happened? I got some gay friends, right? And I realized they're human beings and they're not gay people. It's John, it's Sally, it's Bill, it's Monica, right? And it's like, oh, and then life is allowed to humanize these people. And this is how I grew through the stages, right? And it's just like if you had a racist upbringing, well, then darn it, you go off to college and your roommate's black. Oh, now you really got to deal. I started a homeless shelter with some friends down in East Tennessee, and our service was to drug addicts and alcoholics who nobody else would take. So we took the worst of the worst, right? And we had a white supremacist in our shelter. And one day he made an appointment to come see me at my office in the church, which, by the way, scared me to death. I was going to be alone with this incredibly violent, face tattoo kind of dude. He sits down in my office, y'all, and he starts crying, which scared me even more. It's like, well, what are we going to do here? And he said, I've got a real problem, and it's a spiritual crisis. And I said, okay, what is it? Toughest guy I'd ever laid eyes on, crying his eyes out with a priest. He said, well, I was in prison, as you know, for a long time. And I was a part of an Aryan sort of brotherhood there, white supremacists. I was raised to hate everybody with any pigment in their skin. And one day the rival gang targeted me and were about to kill me. And a black man saved my life. That's what he told me. That is a true story. That's what he told me. And he said, I don't know what to do about it, because I was raised to hate black people. I've done terrible, terrible things to black people. And then I'm in trouble. And literally, I'm not alive if this black man doesn't intercede with his own strength and save my life. And I don't know what to do, because I don't know how to act towards black people other than hatefully, but I know I can't do that anymore. He said, and I'm no big friend of the black man today, but I know I cannot be their enemy any longer. I owe this man a debt of gratitude. All we did with that man was allow him to be where he was. We provided him, Christina, Bay Stage. It was a homeless shelter. So shelter and food, right? We provided him order. We used the 12 steps. So by the way, Alcoholics Anonymous is quintessential blue stage. We provided him with the structure of the 12 steps. So that's blue stage. We then helped him get a job, orange stage. You can pull up your bootstraps once you get your act a little bit together. And then his own life presented him with the crisis of his past that began to help him emerge into green stage. I cannot be an enemy to a black man anymore. Does that resonate?
That's such a beautiful story.
Isn't it amazing? And
it's wonderful. It explains so much. God's love.
That's right.
That black man to show the Aryan.
That's right. That's right. Jesus teaches the spiral. He doesn't use the spiral language, but he teaches the essence of the spiral when he teaches about the kinds of soil that seed is sown in. Jesus teaches in a wonderful parable. Sometimes the seed is sown on rocky ground, sandy ground, and it goes through several different types of ground. And you'll notice he says, and it sprouts up this way and it grows. And each time it's a little bit longer that it grows. And finally it's sown in this fertile fecundity, this great soil, and it grows up and it blooms, right? Well, this is the evolution of growth. It's embedded in our tradition all along the way. So for me, the Christian community today can be an answer to the culture wars by understanding this sort of map, and then by making allowance for it with our people. So I've gone on too long. I'm going to stop, take a few questions if you want to ask them. And then
Just begin to tell us about the turquoise.
Well, yeah.
Just a brief thing, just one or two things, and that's it.
Yep. Okay. So turquoise. So if integral stage Integral stage sees that everything is for growth. All the hierarchies of the first tier are what we call growth hierarchies. Every stage is necessary, right? That's integral stage. It has this wonderful appreciation for it all. And it sees distinctiveness in all the different stages. As we go on, and this is a stage of consciousness that I'm not really qualified to talk about all that much. It's just coming online in real time. The next stage is, I love it. It sees everything as one.
Wonderful. That's all I need to hear. That's
Sees
what I
everything
thought.
as one.
That's what I thought.
It transcends, and integral is beautiful and great. And to be able to see everything in its distinctiveness is wonderful. As we keep on going, and this is the mystical tradition of our Christian way enormously, sees it all as one. It's all one. It's all one. And really science is onto this. I mean, when you talk to your friends who are, what do you call it? Physicist, I've lost the word. Anyway.
Geneticist.
No. It's oh shoot, I've just lost the word. That's funny. But anyway, some of our sort of physicist type friends will, when they talk to you and they'll say, you know, really everything is just energy. You know, so science already knows this. I can't believe I've lost that word, no matter. So yeah, this is one map that sort of gathers together so many different maps. If this is something that interests you and that you're curious about, keep digging into it, talk to me about it. We'll talk more and more about it in the days ahead, just in the life of Good Shepherd in general. Also, you can go find the mystics of our tradition who have laid out the maps in their own way, from St. Francis of Assisi to Teresa of Avila to John of the Cross to Meister Eckhart, who've taken the essence of what I've been presenting today in my just simple little way and applied it to the individual spiritual journey. The reason I teach this, somebody said, why are you teaching that in Episcopal exploration? And the reason I do it, I'm not saying I'm right to do it, but I'm just have my motivation is I think the future of organized Christianity is going to be dependent upon our capacity to see each other at a deeper level and to stay together across difference. Green, orange, blue wars are tearing everything apart. They're tearing American democracy apart. They're tearing institutional Christianity apart. They're just tearing everything apart. And too many of us are taking the bait on the culture wars. And there's an opportunity to sort of push back from the war, look at the big picture, and then make ourselves vulnerable to things happening like that story I told about the Aryan Brotherhood guy coming to see me. I wasn't present for that because I'm great or smart. I had been taught just enough to know to keep my trap shut, you know, and let evolution and the spirit of the living God do their work. And my job was to be present. Does that sort of make sense? So people try to bait me. I'm a priest. They want to know what I think about abortion and all these other issues. I rarely take the bait. It's not interesting to me. It's not interesting to me. Where we need to take a stand, and we've spoken out on things like the murder of George Floyd and stuff like that, where we need to take a stand, we do. We do believe in justice and the dignity of every human being. But for the most part, as a Christian, not even just as a priest, as a Christian, I try not to take the bait because I want to stay in the game with you as long as I can. Because if we'll stay in the game with each other, loving each other through thick and thin, we'll both stay healthy, we'll both grow. And that's how we build the kingdom of God right here, right now. So questions, comments, and then I'll let you go. This one always goes long because I just cannot condense the spiral dynamics teaching. Yeah, one day.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Is that helpful? Good.
Very much so.
Good. And remember, 30% of the population is blue, 50% is modern or orange, 20% is green or progressive. So when you're feeling in your progressive oats and you can't get anybody to agree with you, just remember 80% of the population is not there yet. We're at a tipping point. More and more people are getting there. But don't waste too much time being frustrated. Just love.
Do you think with the pandemic that's caused us all to move towards?
Absolutely. The pandemic has been an evolutionary potent year. Some teachers say it's advanced us 10 years. 10 years. I mean, think about it. I know there's a lot of people who are totally against face masks, but even still, think about it. If half of the American population wears face masks, y'all, that's God, what's the math on that? That's 150 million people doing something for the common good. Think about it. In a small, tactile way, that is evolutionarily potent. And if we let that just sort of be the leaven there, it'll keep moving the ball down the field. But also remember, for when green stage is operating in me, and here's a good thing to say, we don't have green people. We don't have blue people. We don't label people. It's green stage or type in people, right? It's in them. If our green stage, if our friends who have green stage operating in them don't stop being mean to everybody who doesn't believe like they do, it's only hurting the cause. Now it's a part of it. You got to go, we call it mean green. You got to go through mean green to get to integral, but don't spend too much time there. Don't spend too much time hating Donald Trump, right? Likewise.
Now that's hard.
Well, and I don't mean to, likewise, don't spend too much time loving it.
I know I shouldn't have took it literal, but I'm just saying that's hard.
Likewise, don't spend too much time hating Barack Obama. You know, it's all over the map, right? And don't spend too much time loving him either, right? Just keep growing, keep growing.
Remember, love is all and go turquoise. Love all of you. God bless you.
See ya. So what's happening is you all, by your presence in the world, are causing evolution to happen. And for that, I'm deeply grateful.
Well, we're grateful. We're learning and growing.
Yeah.
I know I am.
Absolutely. So
I've seen people do stuff in this past year that I never thought I'd see in my entire life.
Yeah, that's right. It's an evolutionarily potent time. So we'll see you back here next week, 1 o'clock, with a much more disciplined teacher, my buddy, Woody Snowden. Peace, y'all. Have a great day.
God bless.